Right, TDM TV presents an exclusive interview with Wanda Eaton. I'm sure a lot of you may have read that there was a blog that was personally attacking Wanda and her lifestyle that she shows on social media. So we're here to not only understand who Wanda is, but understand her influences on the city of Worcester as well. So I just want to ask you a couple of questions, and then after that, it's all yours. All right. The first question I want to ask is, who is Wanda Eaton, and what have you done to influence the youth in this city?
Well, I was born in Boston. I've been here since pretty much, third grade for sure. Spent a couple of years outside the city. Been here, raised up here for the most part. Ended up in the street at 13. I was put into foster care, became chronic runaway, blah, blah, blah. And got pregnant at 16, had a miscarriage because I thought I was grown, living on my own, went on about my business, ended up having my first child by the time I was 18. Got my own place in the valley, and because of the living conditions, I started volunteering in the community, and I started working with the tenant organization and the housing authority on things that basically had pertained to public housing, tenants, their rights, and really it was mostly at the time in the 80s, about the late 80s, early 90s, mostly about maintenance issues and things for health issues and things that for the kids. And that's what we did. That's how I started working with the city, trying to get money for programming in the valley, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And so that was when Levy and Mulford were, the city manager, mayor. And then we had Mariano and I forget the manager's name off the top of my head. I can't think of it. But we had them, and then now we have the new mayor and city manager, and I don't know them. According to this blog,
Mm-hmm.
I got them in my pocket. I ain't got nobody in my pocket. I don't know these people. I just met these people during. Matter of fact, I didn't even meet the city manager until these race dialogue things, which I talked to him at Quincy. So I didn't even meet him until this race dialogue. And the mayor I met during Martha Coakley's campaign. So I don't know any of these people like that. The only one that I do know that I was mentioned in TurtleBoy's thing
Mm-hmm.
is Brenda Jenkins. And I don't even know her like that. We grew up together. Like she's older than I am, but I grew up on Edgeworth Street. And so we knew all the same people.
Yeah.
And I hung around with a lot of the older kids down on North Street. And so I knew Brenda through not only that group, but also through going to OIC, Occupational Industrialization Center. And so a lot of these people I'm working with right now, I remember from that time when I was 16, 17 years old. So I'm just reconnecting with these people. For the last 10 years, I've been deathly ill. As you personally know, you watched me this past year and a half stop walking again. I was bedbound for the last, 3 years pretty much, until this past year and a half. So at the end of the day, from 2000 to now, I had gotten sick and just got worse and worse till where I had almost died twice. And now where I'm physically in a better position, I'm able to get out the house more. I've gotten involved in this administration and what the city's trying to do. I've worked with the past two. This is the third one. And here I am just trying to get back into doing things to make it better than it was when my kids were in school and I was doing stuff back then to make it better.
Well, speaking of making it better, how long have you been involved with the Worcester Housing Authority, or the WHA is what they call it?
Well, with WHA, like I said, since 80, I moved in there in 84. I started to get involved in 85, and then around 86 was when I ended up on all the different boards across the city. I was on the Graper Valley Health Center board. I was actually on the Graper Valley Child Cares board. I was on VRI Resident for Improvement. The Massachusetts Union Public Housing Tenants, Legal Services of Worcester. Those are a bunch of boards that I've sat on, and try to help to make things better in the community, whatever the issue happens to be. If it's a health topic, if it's education, if it's government, whatever it is. I mean, I've always been active in the community, and I've always done things to put my kids and my kids' friends in a better position than I came from. Because that's all I can expect of you all, is to do better than what I had done. So I was a dropout. I expect my children not to be, of which they weren't. They graduated high school. They both went on to college. They both work full time, never been arrested, take care of their children. They're active parents, volunteer at their schools. They do all that. And, obviously my smoking weed didn't affect them turning out to be productive members of society. I'm just saying.
Well, speaking
like
of that,
Snoop, I taught my kids, this is what I do. This is what you can do when you're grown and you can pay your own bills. And until then, you do what I say, because I believe within your own personal household of where you pay bills, you can be the dictator. So in my house, I will dictate to my children, this is what I do. You do as I say, not as I do, until you're grown. Because you're drinking your liquor at night, and that's legal, and your children are going to your fridge to get you that beer, right? Junior, go get me a Budweiser out the fridge. You ain't got a problem with that. But because I sit in my bedroom and smoke a blunt before I go to bed, or when I get out the bed, or whenever the hell I feel like it, people have an issue with that. I don't. At the end of the day, it's going to be what it is.
Exactly.
And I have no shame in my game.
Okay, well, on to the next question. How long have this been going on between you and the, I guess, so-called TurtleBoy? How long have you guys been social media beefing is what we call it?
Listen, I don't know what you call it. I don't call it a beef. I call it, listen, he can't touch me because I'm the queen. Just saying. He can't touch me. He's not affecting me. He might be affecting everybody. Listen, I've been getting hit up all day. And at the end of the day, this is how I feel about it. Any press is good press. I'll take it. Because people are paying him advertising dollars to get what I'm getting from him for free. I ain't even do nothing. I guess I'm a celebrity, according to him, to hear him tell it. Yeah. I haven't still read what he wrote.
Wow, you haven't read the article yet?
I haven't read it. I haven't had the opportunity to read it.
Oh, okay.
Everybody keeps hitting me up about it. I haven't had the opportunity. The last one, the original one, which was the Ed Augustus one about 3 weeks ago, yeah. I did respond, and I entertained a dialogue with people. But, they had issues with what I had to say, and I found out that I was actually, talking to the barrel of Forrest Gumps. And, considering we're talking Forrest Gump, I don't speak Forrest Gump. So with that said,
all right, and
I've done the best that I can, so I figure maybe if we video blog it, people will be able to listen with their eyes and understand what I'm saying. I mean, with their ears and understand what I'm saying. Was that a little sideways?
No, I mean, well, do you think that what his reasons are behind trying to expose your personal life? Did you do something to make him mad?
I didn't do nothing. Listen, I did what I do. I said what I meant. I meant what I said. And I don't take it back. I own it all. Yeah. I own everything, including my flaws. And if people think because I smoke bud that that's a flaw, that's their prerogative and that's their opinion. I think what he does ain't cool. But I believe he has the right to his opinion. He has the freedom of press. Hey, I could be suing him for taking all my pictures off Facebook and putting them up on top of his stupid little blog. I could care less. Take them. Just make sure, do me that solid. When you take them, take those good pictures. The ones you've picked so far, at least the one that I've seen going around Facebook, is my favorite, I have to say. The one of me up in Maine, when I went up there and got me a lobster roll, which I might add was my first trip to the ocean in over 10 years. So the fact that I was there standing on them rocks, doing me myself, by myself, don't bother me.
if you're doing yourself, and I guess you shouldn't bother anybody.
If you see me in the picture, you don't see a person around. We made sure we was in a very secluded area by ourselves. We weren't in no public space. We were on a private part of a beach. So I stood on the rocks and enjoyed my little smoke with me, the rocks, and the snails. And that's what I did.
Okay, now, the blog was titled "Are White Teachers Racist?" And I'm assuming that there was a meeting that you attended, which was a racial dialogue on whether teachers are racist against the minorities that attend their school or the minorities that are in their class.
Well, the City of Worcester is actually having a dialogue on race.
Okay.
And last night was session number 4, which was entitled Youth and Education, and it was at Worcester Vogue. And the purpose of the meeting and the dialogue was, according to the city, to discuss how young people are affected by racism in educational settings and how the education system is not effectively providing an equal education to all young people in our city. That was the topic.
And that was the meeting you attended yesterday.
Right. And then TurtleBoy puts up some samples of teachers' comments that are racist.
Well, if you want, we can go down the list. That way people understand what you're reading, so there's no confusion or
All right. The list was made up, I want to start off by saying, this particular list right here that he has on the page, I guess he has a picture of the list maybe it's on the masslive.com, which is where he got my quote from. Mm-hmm. They had a copy of this on there.
Okay.
This was handed out by the high school students. It was in my particular group that I was sitting in. It was a young white girl. I don't know what high school she was from. What I do know is that the high school students that were in attendance were from all the high schools in the city. They weren't like Worcester Vogue kids, but they were from all the different high schools, and they were scattered amongst the 20 groups. There were 20 groups. And at each group, there was a group of high school students, and they produced this. And this is what they came out of their dialogues with. And the youth that were there collectively agreed on this. So that means it came from the white kids, Spanish, Asian, all the kids, everybody. Didn't matter what.
So every race agreed that
they
heard
all
teachers.
Participated. Okay. Yes. Yes. And that was made very clear, and that what they wanted the city to do during this dialogue was if they could please use this as a guide for the discussion on how some of the high schoolers feel about comments that they've actually heard teachers say either to them or to their friends. So people who weren't there for the dialogue may not have got to hear that from the students who asked, or at least in my group, I should say, asked permission if the facilitator would use this as a guide. And so it says some samples of teachers' comments that are racist. The people in Ferguson are acting like savages. It's such a shame. We would love to hear a black person's perspective on the black and blue or white and gold dress fiasco. Your people should be indebted to Abraham Lincoln. He freed the slaves. I don't know if someone like you should apply at WPI. I think you would do better at QCC. Let me tell you, my grandson Akeem, who just graduated from North High, who happens to be my son's stepson. Yes, my son who has one biological son, but has 3 sons, because unlike a lot of men who abandon their sons, my son not only takes care of his son, but his son's biological brothers as well, was told this year, not about WPI, because I actually wanted him to try and do applications for schools outside of Massachusetts, preferably places like, you know, Howard University and Bowie State, or even, you know,
Virginia
Morehouse.
Union, yeah.
Right, you know, some black colleges, considering that he's, you know, he's here, he's, you know, from Jamaica, you know, the whole 9 yards. I figured that it would be a better experience for him, because he's only been in this country now for, you know, his mother became legal maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and he came, you know, here because he wasn't born here. He was actually born in Jamaica. So the relationship him and Manny built was while he was in Jamaica. And the grandmother and stepson were brought here recently. And he was just told at North High he'd be better off at Quinsigamond, which is where he's actually going this year. And then, you live in Great Brook Valley, you're brave. Has actually been said to my kids when they lived in Great Brook Valley as kids going to school, but they didn't say you're brave. What they said was, aren't you afraid to live in Great Brook Valley? Like, isn't it scary to live there? So maybe it's not as the way these kids actually put the quote for my personal experience of what my kids went through. But I do know that that has been an issue. The fact that you have one of those streets that are within Great Brook Valley attached to your name, it's an issue with everybody, anywhere. And then they proceed to go on with some other ones that says, I can't teach you guys Black history. There's just not time to fit it in the curriculum. I personally have actually heard that from plenty of teachers and administrators who have said they don't focus on Spanish history because we want that as well. We have a month in March, but people don't know that. So then there's, I think you will be able to relate to this book. It's about kids who grew up in the ghetto and made a life for themselves. I've actually read some of those books myself, and I've heard people say that. So you personally may not have experienced that, but I, as a Hispanic female with white skin, oh yeah, I've heard that plenty of times, because the one thing that white people have the tendency to do around me personally, and this is from my family, that, you know, I'm half Cuban and half white. You know my mother, you know my sisters, you know my family, my in-laws, so on and so forth. You know what I have personally experienced with stupid sideways comments like, who are them Asian chicks in your basement? Nobody needs to ask who them Asian chicks are. You could just ask who are them girls in the basement. But the white person who has the best black friend will tell you that they're not racist. Then why would you bring up the fact that they are Asian chicks and not just girls in the basement? I'm just saying. And if that could come from the person who birthed me, why can't it come from anybody else? So with this, how you had said you've never actually experienced any of these things being said to you, I know personally, as the parent, and discussing this way back when my kids were in school, these are things that I heard then and I'm still hearing now. I mean, hell, we beat Rodney King 90-something times with a nightstick back in 1992 on video camera, and yet we're going to today still say that there's not an issue with police brutality. Well, if we held them accountable when they beat the hell out of people and you got it on video, we wouldn't have people in an uproar. Which is why these dialogues from the Department of Justice are supposedly taking place, because of all this stuff that happened in Ferguson and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. And then, there are tons of scholarships for Black and Hispanic kids. The ones who really have trouble paying for college are white students. Well, no, at the end of the day, any student who financially is not in a position to pay for school, white, black, green, I don't care. They need to be able to get that education. And people don't want to allow us to do what we do.
True, very true. We have a couple more on here, then I got 2 more questions for you, and that'll be it. So
why should we talk about our differences when we're all the same? We're not the same, which is why we need to talk about the differences, because at the end of the day, I'm never gonna know what it's like to have dreadlocks and black skin, and you're never gonna know what it's like to have my straight hair and white skin. Okay? Listen, you want me to make it simple in layman terms for the people who really don't
For
understand?
the people who are going to watch this vlog, make it
Alright.
in layman's terms, Wanda.
Here we go. This was provided by the Research Bureau, City of Worcester Community Dialogues.
And this is from May and June of 2015, so this is pretty updated.
Right. And they provided us with this document. And TurtleBoy's all big on trying to come out with his little statistics. Now, I'm not a big statistic fan because, for example, this talks about the Census Bureau. The Census Bureau, half of the people don't fill out their census. You've lived in this city for how many years?
For quite a bit.
Have you ever filled out a census?
Maybe 1 or 2.
And otherwise, you ain't never filled one out again. So how do they know anything about you and your black self? Just wondering if it's not on that census. You understand? Well, with this piece here pertaining to the education, their source came from the Worcester Business Journal. No, this one is the U.S. Census American Survey, 25 years and older. I'm not even sure about this one. What I do know is it says that the educational attainment by race and ethnicity in Worcester, 2013, right? Now listen to what the categories are. White alone, not Hispanic or Latino. Black alone, Asian alone, Hispanic or Latino. Okay. So my question now becomes, where does my grandson Jaden fit in?
It's in black.
He's Jamaican. It says black alone. He's biracial. There's no biracial here.
Well, maybe that's the line in the sand.
Maybe that's the line that we're trying to have a discussion about.
Exactly.
So at the end of the day, if you want to talk about black and white, we need to really talk about black and white. Because right here, you're not including the people who are made up of multi-ethnicities, races, whatever. You want to say we're all the same race because we're the human race? Then you're most definitely right. We are all the same race because we're the human race. But if you want to break it down by color, let's break it down by color and call it what it is. You got white people who want to say that this is their country. I beg to differ. It was the Native Americans' country. Columbus didn't find a country that people already lived on. I'm just saying. I just got done watching the Book of Negroes. Me and my son were never taught during the Revolution War and when the British came how they used slaves and promised them things to help them during that war, and then basically they ultimately were bamboozled. Nobody knows that. It was never taught in school. I'm gonna be 50, and I just learned that the other day. My children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren should be learning that, because that's the true American history, not just Abraham Lincoln and George Washington. Because the one thing we don't talk about is how Jefferson owned slaves. We just started talking about that over these years. It wasn't taught to me when I was in school in the Worcester Public School systems that at the time was predominantly all white. So I'm not talking about things I don't have any personal experience with. Exactly. And that's the only thing I'm speaking on. It's my personal experiences and what I've attempted to do to make things better. Exactly. And that's it.
Speaking about the meetings, are there going to be any upcoming meetings that you're going to be attending so that people, you know, who want to volunteer and who want to make a difference in their community, they can follow you, or you know, you can let them know what's any upcoming meetings?
The race relation meetings will continue until July 13th.
Okay.
It's every Monday until July 13th. So I think we have, 3 more sessions? Next week, I'm really looking forward to seeing TurtleBoy, because next week it's actually about social media, the media, and how we utilize it. And this video blog is my very first video blog, so I hope people enjoyed it, because I've done nothing but try to be, you know, who I am. I have no political connections, no nothing. I want to hold the politicians accountable. I want to hold the executive director of the Housing Authority and its board of commissioners accountable. I want legal services in Worcester to start representing the low-income people in the community instead of their stupid little clinics because they're underfunded. I don't want to hear any of that. At the end of the day, there are people going to housing court and being evicted unjust because they have disabilities, because, you know, the housing authority is acting like a dictatorship and they're trying to listen. At the end of the day, the federal government has said to the Worcester Housing Authority, time limits in public housing is not acceptable or allowable. And the state gave the Worcester Housing Authority a waiver. Now the people who live in the Curtis apartments, which I believe is the only state-aided family development now, because that's another thing. Somehow they were able to take over the other state, which was Lakeside, and turn it into federal. How that happened, I have no idea. But once I become the commissioner of the Worcester Housing Authority Board of Commissioners, hopefully I get that tenant seat, because at the end of the day, I have 30 years experience working with the housing authority, with the federal government, saved public housing, worked on welfare, worked on medical. I've worked on pretty much everything. If it's got something to do with low income, minority people, and helping them to advocate for their rights, we have places like legal services who don't do their job, so I end up basically just picking up the slack, and most of that is because I have been sick these last 10 years. I did work. And when I wasn't working, I was working, just not getting paid as a full-time volunteer while my children were in school, which gave me the flexibility to be a good parent, be at the school, be on top of them, and not pay somebody else to raise my children, which is why the people on North Street's children, Hooper Street's children that are acting ratchet, as one of my Facebook things was copied and posted to his blog, also referred to. How I talked about these ratchet kids and their mothers. Yeah, because these kids are being raised by kids my kids' age. And those parents of those children are ratchet and their children are ratchet. My children ain't. My children are, it speaks for themselves. You can look up their names. You can Google them. You won't never find nothing on mine because they've never been to jail. They graduated high school, went to college, and worked full time. Have vehicles, have children, have a family life like the American dream. But their children today are being faced with obstacles that they shouldn't have to be faced with in school. And that was last night's conversation. So
that was about the meeting.
This Monday will be media. The following Monday, I forget what the topic is, but you can go to Worcester City Hall, you know, to you know, online, and they have the schedule and everything there. They may also have, hey, TurtleBoy might even have it for all I know, you know, the actual schedule and what the topics are. But I think next week and the next 3, I believe, will all be at Worcester Vogue. By the way, if you want to attend, you can double check with the WRTA. I do believe that from the hub, you can get on Monday evening the bus that goes to the Worcester Vocational High School, and it's a free shuttle. You don't have to pay. So there's no reason that nobody can get there from the hub. Whether you can get from your house to the hub, I'm not sure how that entity works. But I do know that the Belmont Street bus is providing a free shuttle for the hours, which, if you want to have something to eat, it starts at 5 to 6 is when you can come register, get something to eat, mix and mingle, review the questions, which are also posted on the website of City Hall. So you can get a feel ahead of time of what the questions will be. I'll be greeting people at the door, so hopefully TurtleBoy or any of his little turtle friends will come and, I don't know, bring me some pepperoni pizza, because you think you're the Ninja Turtle.
Speaking of TurtleBoy, I wanted to ask this. I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, if there was ever a chance where you and him would meet face to face, what would you say to him in person?
Listen, I'm ready to meet anywhere, anytime, any place. Hell, he can come sit right here with me, and we can have a drink of whatever, water, coffee, a cigarette. I don't care. We can do whatever he wants. He can take me out to lunch. He said I look like a fun date. According to him, what he said. Listen, like I said, I haven't read nothing yet.
Well, I'm pretty sure after this blog,
everybody's hitting me up telling me what he said. I still have yet to go and read it, so I'm looking forward to going to read it. I know this was a really long blog, and hopefully it was entertaining. Because, you know, as serious as I am, I had to throw in those little sideways things. Because I just couldn't stop myself. I mean, you know, I'm talking about people who have diarrhea of the month and think like, you know, Forrest Gump. So it is what it is. Just saying. And imagine if I had actually smoked before we did this.
Yeah, it would have been interesting.
It would have been real funny.
Yeah.
No, not even yada yada. Listen, at the end of the day, if this works out well and you get enough hits, you might want to do something else. I don't know. Hell, like I said, I did a YouTube page. I don't know how it works yet, but I'll figure it out. This was kind of fun.
It was. Well, we want to thank you, Wanda, for tuning in. I know a lot of people can't wait to see this, so we'll try to upload this as soon as we possibly can. But again, there will be a new YouTube channel, TDM TV, so we will be interviewing people throughout the city who make a difference, and that's what it's about. It's about making a difference. So I want to thank you, Wanda, and